For my final project, I will talk about the theme Nationalism, Heroism, and Martyrdom in the comic Persepolis, and later I will draw some parallels between Ataturk and the War of Independence of Turkey and the parts where this theme was present in the comic Persepolis. But first, let me give you the definitions of these terms. Nationalism. Advocacy of the political independence of a particular person, nation. Patriotism for one's country. What is a patriot? Patriot is someone who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend it against enemies or detractors. Heroism. Great bravery. Martyrdom. The state of being a martyr. And martyr is someone who sacrifices something of great value, and especially life itself, for the sake of principle. Now, let's come back to the book. Let's go back 40 years. The book Persepolis takes place during and after the Iranian Revolution, which was held in 1979. During the time, Iran was under the reign of Shah Pahlavi, who was brought to power by the British after World War I and was supported by the United States.
I will be the Iranian Ataturk. I'll modernize this country and I'll create a republic.
The Shah had some plans, but the British got wind of them. So one day...
Hello. Are you positive you want to establish a republic? Wouldn't you much rather become emperor? Me? Emperor? Why, of course. Emperor's better than president, and an emperor has absolute power. Anyway, a great country such as yours needs a strong man, a man like yourself, at its head. Well, that is a good point. What's more, we both know full well that the clergy is against the republic. And, with good reason, I may add. What would I have to do? Nothing. Just give us the oil, and we shall take care of the rest.
Therefore, Reza Pahlavi became the Shah of Iran.
From now on, I am your new king. Everything that's yours is now mine.
Even though he was a dictator, he did modernize Iran. In a way, I guess you could say he loved his country.
However, after some years, in 1979, a series of events led to the Iranian Revolution, which resulted in the overthrow of the Pahlavi dynasty. Nationalism gives people the courage to stand up for their country.
I told you. Didn't I tell you? I told you. Do you realize we're witnessing an historic moment?
When the revolution comes, Margie and her family rejoice. After decades under the despotic American-backed Shah, she and her family were so sure that this moment would have ensured that the Iranian people would finally be free to lead their country and decide for themselves with a democratic government. Margie, despite her little age, is an Iranian patriot and a nationalist, and she believes in the value and need for an independent Iran ruled by Iranians. Margie's love for her country and belief that it should be free is so great that she feels the urge to fight for it. Her strong desire could also be seen from this chapter, where she attends the demonstrations despite her age. These panels are also a clear evidence for Margie's devotion to her country, her patriotism, and also her strong urge to have an Iran that stands on its own feet. For Margie, heroism and martyrdom were extremely positive and desirable. During the revolution, martyrdom was a common occurrence that was encouraged by the revolutionaries. The concept of dying to resist an oppressor was seen as highly honorable. Here are some panels from the chapter Persepolis. Here we can see a cadaver. As it says over here, this young man was killed by the army. And these people over here are honoring him like a martyr. In the next panel, an old man is carried on a stretcher. The people outside are shouting slogans, and they were calling him a hero. Even though they don't know the reason why the man was dead, they were still appreciating him as a martyr. These panels show how much they valued the martyrs those days. However, after the revolution, things didn't turn out as expected. The new Iran, ruled by the Iranians, was worse than an Iran ruled by foreign powers, and resulted in a regime that was much more oppressive than Shah's. With the new Islamic Republic, the co-ed schools closed and the women started to wear the veil, which was highly irritating for a secular girl like Margie. Therefore, Margie's strong belief in the notions of nationalism and martyrdom started to fade away. Well, I kind of understand her actually. What country or which people were going to be the object of her nationalism? Moreover, later on, she started to realize that the boys that were sent off to war as martyrs were being brainwashed and used. Their lives were being wasted in service of nationalism. Therefore, Margie understood that just as nationalism can overthrow a dictator, it could also be used as a tool to lift and support a dictator. Let's come back to the book. In the chapter, The Heroes, a few days after the revolution succeeds, many political prisoners, including Simak and Mohsen, who were the friends of Margie's parents, were liberated. Simak and Mohsen were imprisoned because of speaking out against the Shah, and during that time they went through so much pain and suffering, and eventually survived. In prison, they were tortured, whipped, burnt with irons, had their fingernails pulled out. However, through all the misery, they were still determined to retaliate against the Shah monarchy. Such persistence can be viewed as an act of heroism. It was also this chapter where Margie realized that her father wasn't a hero and felt dismayed about it. It wasn't until she found about Uncle Anush that she realized she in fact had a hero in her family and got very happy about it. When Anush was 18, his uncle Feridun became the Minister of Justice of the Iranian province in Azerbaijan. Like his uncle, Anush believed all people were equal in the eyes of the law. However, his father was faithful to the Shah and thought that Anush was a traitor. He then went to Azerbaijan, where his uncle was, and became his secretary. So one morning, Shah's soldiers arrested and killed Feridun, and so Anush escaped. The Shah's soldiers were looking for him. He swam across the Aras River and into the USSR. He studied in Moscow and got married to a Russian woman there. After they got divorced, he returned to Iran and eventually put into prison for 9 years. Margie was delighted to hear about Uncle Anush's stories, and she once again was pleased to have a hero in her life. So we pretty much learned about Margie's hero. Now, let me tell you about my hero. Winston Churchill defined him as a great hero. For JFK, he was one of the greatest figures of their century. David Ben-Gurion said he didn't know of any greater statesman. For Jawaharlal Nehru, he was one of the creators of the modern age. For Charles de Gaulle, he was the greatest achiever among all world leaders because he modernized his nation. Venizelos, who nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize, said, "In the life of a nation, it is very seldom that changes to such a radical degree were carried out in such a short period of time. These extraordinary activities have earned him fame as a great man, in the full sense of the term." Yes, that's right. I'm talking about Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. It's not possible to define him in just a few words. He was a visionary leader. He was the hero of a 20th century Renaissance. He was a commander. He was a teacher. He was a statesman. He was a reformist. But most importantly, as we could also see it on his surname, which was granted him by the Turkish National Government back in 1934, he was the father of the Turks. He established the Turkish Republic, adopted a new Turkish alphabet which was modified from the Latin alphabet. outlawed the fez by the had law, abolished Sharia, encouraged Western clothing for men and women, adopted the Gregorian calendar instead of the Islamic calendar, gave women the right to vote and the right to hold office, adopted the law of surnames, and many more. But before making all these reforms, he saved our country from the attack of other countries. With the Treaty of Sevres after World War I, Turkey was shared between many different countries. Ataturk repudiated the treaty since it was disadvantageous to them. The Bosphorus was full of the ships of the Allied fleet. But Ataturk's desire for his country to be free was so great that he was so determined to oust them. The occupation of Istanbul and Izmir by the Allies in the aftermath of World War I prompted the establishment of the Turkish National Movement under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal. On May 19, 1999, Ataturk officially established the Turkish National Movement, in other words, Turkish War of Independence, by landing at Samsun. After Samsun, he went through Anatolia and held numerous congresses in which he told the people that the Sultan was the prisoner of the Allies and that he had come to prevent the nation from slipping through the fingers of its people. This became his message to the Turks of Anatolia. After 3 years of the movement, Ataturk, being a very determined patriot and a leader, defeated the Allies and drove them from Anatolia, leaving it safe from the attackers. And later, he abolished the Sultanate and he founded the Republic of Turkey. And that was the time when Turkey got complete control of its territory and sovereignty. If we have national sovereignty and modernity in Turkey now, it's because of Ataturk. Therefore, he is the hero of our nation. So now let's draw a few parallels between Persepolis and Ataturk and the Turkish National Movement. So the first example is, in terms of national sovereignty and nationalism, the demonstrations against the Shah and the Islamic Revolution in Persepolis is actually similar to the Turkish National Movement. Because the revolutionaries wanted an Iran that stood on its own feet, they wanted to have their own control. Similarly, the Turkish National Movement was held to get rid of the Allies that attacked Turkey. If Ataturk or his friends and the soldiers hadn't done the national movement, we would have been controlled by other countries. In both of the cases, the notion of nationalism made the people take action. And for a second example, we could compare Uncle Anush, Simak and Mohsen with Ataturk in terms of heroism. So when we look at the 4 most important features of a hero, we see bravery, determination, strength, and self-sacrifice. And we could see these 4 features in 4 of these people. Despite the pain and suffering they all endured, they never lost their determination and bravery. And so we could call this act as heroism.